Welcome to another episode of An Extraordinary Take, where we share extraordinary ideas and visions with extraordinary people. My name is Bo, your host, and I'm so excited that you were able to join me for this episode. Let's get into it, shall we? Hello, everybody. Welcome to An Extraordinary Take, where we share extraordinary ideas and visions with extraordinary people. Today is a really, really good one. I think we should have actually started rolling long before I did this introduction, because I think the podcast started long. Podcast is so like true. It started probably 30 minutes ago.
In the parking lot.
Yeah, it started in the parking lot. I'm so excited to be joined by a very, very good friend of mine, Kuda. Kuda, how do I say your surname?
Machapu. Kuda Kwashi Machapu. That's my full name.
Kuda Kwashi.
No, is this the first time you're trying to say my full name? That's crazy. After all these years, that's wild.
Let's
just Kuda.
Kuda.
Hi guys.
My very good friend. Kuda. And what's really cool about today is you will be running the podcast, and you'll be interviewing me. We decided this on the fly. Initially, it was going to be the other way around, but we're talking about singleness, the beauty, the ugly side of it, the graceful side of it, and everything in between, and how it all ties into, the kind of people that we are and the kind of people that we want to become. And Kuda feels like the perfect person, one of, the most perfect.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, no. I'll give it to you this one time to have a conversation with, because I usually have this conversation with a lot of my female friends.
Yeah.
But you're the one guy friend that I have the conversation with a lot, and I've always loved your perspective around it. But it's also something that I've always been passionate about, even before I was married and beyond. But yeah, I can't wait to get started. So over to you.
Thank you, Swan. Thank you for
this. Is such a dope way, by the way. Where this is officially the first episode of season 2.
Oh,
so
really?
It's such a beautiful way to start it, and I'm so excited that I do it with you.
Thank you, Swan. Thank you for allowing me to host this podcast session.
It's my pleasure.
And
sharing is caring.
I'm excited because, when me and Spo have catch-ups and conversations, it's literally this. Yeah. So this doesn't feel like I'm in an unnatural place. It's just that there's a camera here, and this is just how it always is. So thank you for having me, Spo. But I think just to kind of kickstart this conversation, one of the things I was thinking about leading up to this was I think that your perspective on this holds weight because you are married, you're happy in your marriage, you have a healthy marriage and your full marriage. So this conversation about singleness isn't coming from the perspective of negative experiences in relationships. And so you have a healthy perspective of relationships, which I believe you'll then have a very healthy perspective of singleness and the importance of that. So I guess to start off with, why did you feel it was necessary to have this conversation?
For a number of reasons. One being that I think even though we create this kind of world where being single is this dreaded waiting room before you get to marriage, so much of how you're going to experience marriage is dependent on how you experience being single.
Wow. Sure.
And I think we sometimes think it's like the moment you're single, that life ends and you begin a new chapter, and it's it's a new world and and it's no, they're actually very connected.
Right.
And you spoke about healthy marriage. People who don't have a healthy single experience, not in terms of
what happened, but their belief around it, right? So I'm not talking that you've dated the best people. I'm talking what you believe about being single can be very difficult for you to have a healthy marriage.
Wow.
Just because your beliefs are your beliefs and they carry over. But then there's also, I think, like, again, because of the idea of being single, being a waiting room, people don't put as much effort into how they experience being single. It's like, when I think about it, it's like if you are going to go on holiday and you decide that, like, okay, I'm going to Belito and I want to go to the beach, right? Your main priority and the only thing you can think about is this, in this 6-hour drive, if you're coming from Joburg, is Belito. It's just getting there. And so even if on the way, there's like this place with beautiful sunflowers that you know, that actually require for you to stop the car and just look, because it's the most beautiful scenery. Or there's this cute coffee shop on the way as well. Like, chances are you're not going to see any of that because you're like, I just need to get to Durban and see the sea. But it doesn't make the things that are on the way any less
beautiful,
you know, beautiful, any less worth taking in. And I think it also speaks to enjoying the journey before you get there. Right? If you're if you just want to quickly get there, then you're just speeding, you know, you're just speeding through it and you're not taking the time, you know, to actually enjoy being there, so that when you get there, it's like, that was actually really good. Not just, you're enjoying the process, not just the destination. So that's the other thing, is that I find whenever I speak to people who are single, this is also when I was single, it's just like, I hate it so much and I can't wait until I meet someone. Like, this sucks. And it's like, I think it's such a dangerous way of looking at it, because the other point is it affects who you're going to get married to, when you're going to get married, and why you're going to get married.
Wow.
If you're so disgruntled with being single, chances are you will take whatever comes. Because you feel like this is already so tedious. You hate this thing. And you also haven't created or made the effort to create the kind of life where it's so beautiful. This feels like an add-on, right? My thing in being single, even though it was, you know, there's lonely parts of it.
Absolutely.
You know,
there's moments.
Companionship is so beautiful. But I think I was just so aware of creating the beautiful life for myself, so that I would have something to offer when I meet my partner. And I think a lot of the times you think that your single chapter, you close a book and then you start a new book. You don't close. They morph into each other. And if you weren't being consciously single, you are not even going to know what to ask for. You're not even going to know what to fight for when you get to marriage, because you're not going to know what things are important to you. So you're probably going to follow whatever the person whatever their vision is the vision that you're going to go for. And you're going to put too much pressure on them.
Oh, man.
To be your everything.
Exactly.
Because you don't know what joy looks like outside of that. So it's a lot of reasons. But I do think that it's important. And I do think we have to stop this thing, man, of making it seem like it's a jail cell, like it's a holding cell, and that life only starts once
I get married.
It's gonna catch up with you.
I never wanted to get to marriage, so I'm not married, but I never wanted to get to a place of being married and be like, I'm finally here. Like, I enjoyed. That was tough.
It's like I endured.
My goodness. But we're here now. I never wanted to get to marriage in that place, because I knew then that I've put marriage in a place it shouldn't be. And it's like, I was thinking about this the other day, that like, when something is not in its rightful place, you can't enjoy it for what it is. So if this chair, let's say, for example, it provides you a sense of rest, comfort, and ease for you to be able to do this podcast.
Yeah.
If this was in the middle of the road,
it's a distraction.
It's a distraction. Yeah. It's not in its rightful place. And I think when we put marriage in this place of this destination that is going to fulfill all these different desires and needs and things that I have, you've put it in a place that it shouldn't be. And what you're then going to do is put too much pressure on that person and require them to fulfill things in you that they were never designed to.
That you should have worked on.
That you should have worked on, you know? And I think for me, singleness is like, I like what you said about how the two actually intertwine and they work together, right? And I remember listening to this video by like TD Jakes. It was a short clip and he was talking about how as a single person, you want to have a party with yourself. You want to enjoy yourself. You want to just have a good time. Yeah. And then when you meet somebody, they just coming and joining the party and you're joining their party and it's a big party. And so I think when I think of it from that perspective, living a good single life is actually working for the marriage that you want, right?
100%.
So tell me then, Spo, like what were some struggles you had as a single person? Because was this a perspective you always had around singleness, or did you grow into it?
Yeah.
And then once you grew into it, you hit like a healthy place and then you got married, or what was your journey like as a single person?
So I think it started off, I'll say on the more negative side.
Okay.
Just because, and I've spoken about this before, just because I didn't aspire to marriage.
Okay.
And the reason why I didn't aspire to it is just because I wasn't seeing good marriages, right? Sure. I wasn't exposed to marriages that I would look at and go, "Ooh, that looks good," you know. I'd love to have this on my own. Yeah. It just looked terrible.
Right. Yeah.
And so as a result, I created like this very, I'm not gonna get married. This is, you know.
Like a hard exterior.
Yeah, like a hard shell type of thing, which served me and didn't serve me. It served me, one, in the sense that then I had to question, okay, if this is not going to be your destination, what does life look like? Okay, what does it mean for you to be fulfilled and happy and full of joy, right? Especially in a world where you're told as a woman that is the peak for you. Yeah. That's what real fulfillment looks like. If you're foregoing that, then what? So then it pushed me into a corner where I had to be very intentional about how I was curating my own life and about how I was curating my own joy, about what I was making time for, right? Like friendships became very important because then I'm like, okay, these are going to be my people. So a lot of good came out of that because then I had to kind of forego the crutch of this is what I'm preparing for. This is what it left me with a blank canvas. Sure. And then it allowed me to then color it in as I saw fit. So I appreciate that aspect of it. On the other hand, then as I kind of grew, then I realized, okay, just because good things have come out of a negative mindset doesn't mean that the negative mindset is good.
Right.
It's still a negative mindset.
Yes, 100%.
And I then had to figure out, then I was like, okay, what is my aversion to this thing? Like what's going on? Because I think I do have the capacity to love. I do. And I would like to have that experience, you know? But I mean, even my friends would just be like, this girl, there's no way, you know, like.
This is not for school.
This is not, you know, there's no way. And also because I was so, I think, strict about who I allowed into my space in terms of like dating. And I didn't give you time to make your mistakes or like, and then say, oh no, we'll see. I got to a point where I think like towards my 30s and early 30s, I was cutting off very quickly, like just, but then I started thinking, sure, is any part of this unhealthy? You know, is any of it maybe coming from a place of trauma? Because I believe in self-awareness 100%. And I always want to know where something is coming from. Even if it breeds good results, I want to know like why.
That's so good.
So then I had to question that. And then I thought, okay, let me try. Like, let me open myself up and let me try. But what I really value is by the time I did, I was so clear about not just who I was, but who I was trying to be, who I was building myself to be, because I believe that we are a body of work. And in being this body of work, we get to like fashion it in a way that makes sense, in a way that we would be proud of. And so if you see certain spots that this is not building towards a character that I want, then it's your job to iron it out. It's your job to say like, show me what are the things that I'm missing? How am I standing in my own way? Yeah. So by the time I had realized, okay, I'm gonna go for a relationship, I'm gonna give it a chance, I could say, this is what it looks like for me. This is what I'm looking for. Sure. But also the best thing is I even like would say to my husband that I would never ask you for something that I'm not willing to give in return. Wow. So if I say I want accountability, you best believe I'm giving you accountability. If I say like, because I've done the work, so I'm not putting you in a place where I'm expecting you to be my everything in ways that I haven't been for myself. I know what it is to be there for myself. I know what it is to be honoring to myself. So I can do that for you as well. Sure. But I then expect the same because I know it's possible, right? Because I've already started with me. So I think it was like a journey of kind of this, but self-discovery was the best part of it, because I could have a vision of some sort of, okay, if I am to get married, what does it look like for me? Whereas I feel like if you spend being single, and I also wasn't afraid of being single anymore because I'd done it. I think if you're afraid of being single and you can't wait to get out of it, you'll probably be afraid to rock the boat, even with a partner, even with some, like if they come in and they're like, so I want a wife that's like this, or I want a husband that's like this, for example. And you know that that's not your belief. You know that that's not, you're going to be afraid to say it because you just can't wait to get out of the cell. I wasn't afraid to say it, and I wasn't afraid to say, look, I think this is great and I love it, but I don't mind letting it go if we're not in agreement, if we're not in alignment, because I've done the thing and I had a beautiful life. And this is also beautiful. I love it. I would love the companionship. I would love, like I was already traveling. I was already doing all of these things. I would love to do it with you. But if we're not in sync about what it looks like, you deserve somebody that's in sync with you. Whereas I feel like if I was coming from a very desperate position, I would have just said, okay, whatever, take me, you know, and that's what I'm so grateful for is even, and by the way, it was scary to say that because then I knew I would have to walk away, you know, and I'm now saying this with like somebody that I met that I'm like, oh my God, I really like, this could be great. But I knew I couldn't betray myself. Sure. I knew I couldn't betray myself because all the work that I had done being single would then mean nothing. You know, then I would just let it go just because I want this on but for me, the quality of marriage is just as important. One of the things I'd say to my husband is like, I'm an achiever. Like I love doing things well. And I think for the most part, I've done being single well. If I'm going to get married, I want to do it well too. But I need somebody that's going to do it well with me, right? Like, it's like Michelle Obama says, I want the LeBron James of marriage if I'm going to do it. I'm not just picking someone who sometimes they practice, sometimes, but those are things that you can't ask for if you haven't cultivated a good single life.
In yourself. Exactly. Man, that's so good. And I think I think it boils down to the perspective of not viewing your singleness as a waiting room, but rather a season of life. Because I think if you view something as a waiting room, like singleness, that's what you're going to do. And you're just going to wait and wait and wait and just sit and wait and not live your life.
Yeah.
But I think if it's a season, that already then begins to propel your perspective to say, okay, if this is a season of my life, how can I get the most out of this season? How can I get the best out of this season? And in actual fact, for me, what has helped me in my singleness has been married people. Because when I ask them, I love asking, married people questions like, okay, how did you guys meet? What was your journey like? And one of the things that I often hear married couples say when they talk about singleness is like, use your time well, right? And it's not that because you're married now you don't have time, or now your time is completely gone or whatever, but it just looks different, right? And constantly I hear from married couples like, use your time well, use your singleness well. And so it's married couples that are giving me this perspective of what it is to live a good single life, So I love your perspective on it, and I love how, though it started from a negative place, it built up into this thing that was positive, and you saw to yourself that, hey, this is I have something to give. Because I think that's also important, right? Yeah. One of the things that also is helping my singleness journey is removing the romantic version I had of marriage out of my mind.
Sure.
So I was ready to get married I was keen to get married at like 24.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some people are ready at that point, but for me, that's when I first wanted it.
Yeah.
And a couple of my friends got married. Yeah. And then they began to share their experiences with me. And I began to realize that the version that I had of marriage in my mind was not what it was.
Realistic. Yeah.
And that brought me down to earth.
You're like, okay.
Exactly.
Maybe let's wait.
Yeah. And it made me realize that, man, dude, I don't just need to do some work for marriage. I need to do some work for who I want to be and who I want to become as a person. And of course, part of that is I do want to be a good husband and a good friend, and I want to do marriage well. But a lot of that is dependent on who I am from within.
I like that. Like, I remember having a conversation, with you, and you were just saying like, I really want to use this time well, but I want to use it to work on myself so that by the time someone does meet me, or I do meet someone, I am worthy of being their husband. I'm worthy of being their partner, as opposed to just like sitting around and just like waiting and without doing any work on yourself. But the reason why I liked hearing that from you is that as guys, you guys tend to be more in a privileged position in that, like, you've got your pick, man. Right. Like, it's the ladies are out. It's just like, but it's a level of power that you have. And for me, you saying that was saying to me that you are seeing the responsibility that comes with that power, right? Like, as a single man with a job, a car, a house, like an apartment or whatever, for most women, it's like you already tick the box. Okay. Yes, let's go, right? Those are then also God-fearing, like you love Jesus, you've grown up in the church, but you're not just one of those people that just go to church. Like you serve, you're active, and you're constantly growing and trying to figure out like what it means to be a child of God. So if I put you on a dating site, or I put you on like, I put your resume, you would have lots of takers from that perspective, right? Yeah. But for you to take a step back and say, no, but like, who am I, right? And what does it mean for me to be ready to be someone's husband? And for you to also not take it like to your head of like, I could do this thing. Like it would be easy. But for you to say no, like I remember, at some point we're having the conversation of like women not always asking the right questions of like, because you have to interview your spouse almost, or your potential spouse. But I find that women don't usually do that a lot. It's just like, if you're interested and I'm interested, let's go.
Sure.
But how part of being responsible, being a responsible single man is saying, like, ask me as well, like probe me, see if I'm the right thing for you. Don't just accept me at face value just because I tick all these boxes, because I don't want us to get to a point where we walk down the aisle, then you're like, because you were so caught on whatever it is, your tick box. Your tick box was. And I do think that a lot of men don't use that responsibility. They want to use the power of what it means to be single and that you can date whoever you want to date, but they don't want to use the responsibility that it comes with to say like, who am I being? And so then I want to ask you, what has it looked like for you to be responsible in your singleness?
Wow.
It's a tough question.
It is.
Like,
it is,
to not misuse your power, especially in a world where women do just want that, and some are willing to overlook certain things. So you could get away with lying.
Yeah, you could. You could
get away with lying.
So I've made my mistakes, right?
Yeah,
disclaimer.
So you're not perfect.
She knows. She's counseled me through a lot of things. So I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm very aware of that. But I think I always kind of had the realization that the truth will eventually show itself. So you can lie now, but eventually you're going to be caught out. Eventually what is in is going to come out. And that has been, I think, a very sobering reality that I've never wanted to present a version of myself that is not who I am right now. I don't, like, if I had to go on a date or if I had to, I would never want to come and impress you. Because that is going to die down and I'm going to be tired. And then you're going to see the real me. So I'm going to show up as me. Right? And I'll express where I want to go in life, what I want out of life. But I think I've always kind of believed in just being me. And if that's not enough and that's not for you, that's perfectly okay. And I think just being secure in that hey, look, I'm not for everyone. Right? And everyone is not for me. Right. So I've got to show up as my best self, and as my most authentic self. I think being authentic and being real with where I'm at, because here's the other thing, like, there's a lot of things that people may see, right? So you might see a job, you might see a car, you might see dressed well or whatever, right? But I know myself. So I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses very, very well. And I don't have a job or a car or nice clothes because I'm trying to hide those things, right? Maybe that's just an expression of who I am or that. But like, I've always been somebody who's like, look into me, man. Look, probe, like exactly like you're saying.
See even my blind spots.
See my blind spots. Call me out. Because I never wanted a marriage where I'm not accountable. I'm not, you can't question me. You can't tell me straight up, dude. I don't want a yes partner. I've never wanted a yes woman who's just yes to everything, right? I've always wanted a marriage that is truly, it's a partnership. We're doing this together, and so for me, I guess in what I desire has kind of shaped how I live my single life right now, where I understand that I have a responsibility to really be an individual that what you see is what you'll get. and not this version of a person that you will later find out like, oh man, you know,
I made a mistake,
you know. So I hope I kind of answered your question.
You did. Yeah. And even as you were answering it, I was thinking that the same actually should apply for women. And
absolutely.
I think a lot of the times there's a Zulu saying that says umendo, umendo or something like that. But it essentially says like you deceive your way into marriage. So it gives off this vibe of don't show everything all at once. Otherwise the person's going to run away.
Right.
So show up in the way that the person wants, or like read the person. And if it looks like, oh, okay, they want this kind of woman they want, then do that. And then that's how you get into a marriage.
Right.
And then you'll see how it goes after that.
So, yeah.
So a lot of the times I think like women, for example, want something that like a lot of my female friends will say a lot is like, sometimes you're even afraid to, like you start dating someone and you can see that there's like weird traits, like it's giving red flag now, or they're not communicating as like with transparency and whatnot. But then because it's early stages, you don't want to seem as though you're maybe controlling, or you don't want to seem as though, so you don't ask the right questions. You want to, there's something that you have a question about, there's something that your intuition is nagging at, but because it's early stages, you feel like, I'm going to make this person run away. So you shrink parts of yourself so that you don't feel like you're being too much. But then the mistake in that is, like you said, the truth will always come out. It will manifest in the marriage. If there are nagging things that you're seeing like around this person, where maybe it's how they speak about women, for example, or it's like their nights are unaccounted for, or whatever. But you're just like, hey, you know, let's not rock the boat. It's gonna come out eventually. And I think for me, I want women to be so empowered, and we're getting there, to be so empowered in being, again, authentically themselves, that they also show up in dates with the lens of, I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to be myself. I'm going to be myself, and hopefully that impresses you.
But a question I have for you is, why do you feel that men have the power?
Societal norms, right? And it's not the full scope, right? But one of them is there's more men in the world, just in the basics. But we live in a world, unfortunately, where whether it's in church, whether it's in basic society, whether it's in culture, like I have so many of my friends who hate going home because they're going to be asked table.
I see.
Time. So there's so much pressure, and because then the scales are tipped in such a way that for the most part it feels like it's men are the ones doing the choosing. In this, like there isn't enough instances of women proposing. It's still very taboo, and it's also like, it's not advisable.
I wouldn't advise that.
You know, so you can see how, for the most part, the scales are tipped in the favor of men, where also women feel like they're fighting for the 10%, you know, where the ones who have understood their power are being irresponsible with it. Yeah. So they're out here dating 10 girls at a time because they can. And that's a reality. That the one way you can see that the scales are tipped is that as a guy, you can literally be dating 10 women at a single time.
That's too much energy, man.
Yeah. I don't know how they do it, but they do crazy. It, right? And that just goes to show. So that makes it even harder for women to fight for themselves, for women to show up and say, I'm going to show up as I am, and hopefully that's good enough for you. It's like,
that's not easy.
I'm competing with 9 other girls. So I have to, you know, and I think those are the things that then make women just get married to whomever is asking without actually probing, without taking the time to say like, you know, like one of the things like I'll say is like, you meet somebody and they're like, okay, let's date. Like now I'm exclusively dating you, right? And I haven't met women who've said no to that. It's like when the guy is ready, then let's go. In fact, you are waiting for that. You're waiting for them to be ready. And then, but you don't take the time to say, do I know enough about you?
Wow.
Am I ready? Like, am I sure about you? You're sure, you know. So it's like this pick-me culture that in the end comes to bite us, you know, because you didn't take the time. Then by the time you get you're finding out is katas of things where you're just like, yo. But it's because I also think we get into relationships too quickly. We also don't know how to date is the other conversation. People don't know how to date. People don't know how to go for a coffee and have a conversation with someone without it being tied to something. It's like the moment you have an interest in me, it's a full-blown relationship. So then you're constantly recovering from breakups that shouldn't be breakups. You know, it could have just been somebody that you were speaking to, and then you realize there wasn't a connection there. You realize, it wasn't. But everything is now a breakup, and it doesn't have to be. But it's because we don't know how to date. We don't know how to get into it with the thing of, no, I'm scoping you. I'm scoping you. I don't want you, I don't want you coming to my house. Who are you? A complete stranger. Why are you coming into my house within 2 weeks of me knowing you? Also, you will die. Like, men are actively killing women out there. But like, we don't have, I think some walls need to be up. Like it's like you'll meet someone and within a week all your walls are down. It's not good. Like it must be a process and a process of unearthing. And you know, I think it was Tani Linda who said to me this, like I was still in high school, and she was saying, I don't know how this generation is dating. She's like, we never used to date like this. She's like, there was this thing where if you in the community, you went to the movies with John, when you came home and you said the next weekend you want to go to the movies again with John, and then the next weekend you want to go to the movies with John, then your parents would be like, what are you comparing John to? Like now you're doing all of these activities. Next thing, John is all you see. You don't know, and it's not. And she was saying it wasn't a thing for pushing people to be promiscuous, because we weren't doing crazy things. If you were going to the movies, you were just going to the movies. But then they'd say, no, go to the park with Tom. Get to, like, don't just. Because then chances are when you're 21, you're going to marry John, but John is all you know. So you don't even know what you like. You like what's being presented to you. And she was saying, like, it's not healthy. And I think there has to be a healthy version of that. But also I think in the Black community, particularly because we don't have conversations around dating, at least like for me as a Zulu person, we didn't know what that looked like without there being lust, without there being promiscuity without there being other things. So you're almost afraid that like, oh, if you are having a coffee with Kuda, then you're having a coffee with Freeman, then you're having a coffee with whoever else, then it's like you're wilding. And it's like, no, Kuda could actually end up becoming a friend, a lifelong friend. And then Freeman is maybe the one that or Freeman, you're like, I don't want him in my life. What a weird person. But the more you do that, the more you kind of get a grasp on who you are and what your preference of dating is, right? Like, I remember a friend of mine saying she'd started seeing this guy and she was like, I've never felt so validated. This guy really, really validates me and my parents don't validate me. No. And she was like, I've never felt so validated. So now it means if this guy and I break up, I'm never going to find this validation, And I was saying to her, no, not necessarily, because it seems like the one thing that is key about this guy is this validation. But what about all the other traits, right? Like, so one, you also didn't know. So I was like, this is a good thing because you didn't know that validation was important to you. And you met this guy at a season where you needed validation and it hasn't shown up in other relationships. But because you didn't need it then, you didn't even know that it's something that you need. It wasn't even a criteria. So then I'm like, that's great. Now you add it on your list of what do I want in a partner? Someone who validates me. So it doesn't mean that now because you met Tom and he validates you, you overlook everything else just because, no, it makes you color, it adds color to your view or to your picture or your canvas of what a healthy relationship looks like. So then you take that as a learning because he could be validating you, but maybe there's maybe there's toxic traits or whatever. And I think a lot of the times we don't use dating experience as also a way to discover ourselves, as a way to say, I like what this person brought out in me. I actually didn't know that I had this playful side because I've always dated serious people. Oh, okay. So I do like to play. I do like to, okay. Then I add that note again. It's another thing that I'm discovering, but it does not necessarily mean that I have to live that out in this relationship. I have to live that out in this experience. So if you look at it that way, then being single can be such a beautiful process of self-exploration, of creating boundaries, of figuring out what is important to you. What are your non-negotiables? What, like if I'm saying my non-negotiable is you have to love God, then that's, because I've learned that in the instances where I said, okay, let's see, it didn't work out. So now if I'm meeting someone and they say they're my husband, that's it. And am I willing to walk away if they can't give me that? If you have curated a happy single life, you will be able to walk away. If you haven't, you're going to settle.
You will. And I think for me, like just to go back to the conversation about women, I think, I don't know if it's my upbringing or just how my life has kind of played out, but I've always, particularly, in the past couple of years, I've really grown to just appreciate women from the standpoint of just who they are, how they're different, how they are wired, and the value they have. And so for me, when it comes to dating relationships and, just what I see across the board, my desire is for women to really value themselves a lot more, because I think a lot of what we're talking about comes from within, and it comes from those internal beliefs that you have about yourself, about your situation, and about your life, right?
About what you deserve.
And what you deserve, right? And so I think that, unfortunately, outside pressures, like family, like community, like whatever it is, right? Will obviously push a narrative towards women around, you're getting old or whatever the case may be, right?
Clock is ticking.
You're never going to find a man. You're never going to do this. And I think that there's a responsibility we have as men as well, to don't view a woman as just a wife.
Yeah.
View her as a person. View her as somebody who has value, purpose, and meaning to their life outside of their relational status.
Outside of you.
And outside of you, view them as who they are. There's this story in the Bible. I don't know if have you read through the story of Esther? And what's fascinating about that story, right, suppose that she, from a young age, is being prepared to be a wife, right? You can see Paul's face right there. So there's this.
Yes.
So there's this. I think there's a part of the story where like they literally for a year, they're preparing her to be a wife, and I think the king wants to choose a wife, and they're putting all perfumes and oils on them for a year, literally, right, preparing them. And later on in the story, she becomes the savior of Israel. Yeah. So whilst man was seeing her as a wife, God is seeing her as a savior, right? And for me, that was mind-blowing when I was thinking about it, because God didn't see her value in her relational status, but he saw a value in who he has called her to be and the purpose that she fulfilled. Right? And I think that we as a society and as men really need to do that. We really need to view women in the right way and in the right perspective. Because I think based on their purpose, right? So I think, one of the things we were talking about just before we jumped on this podcast is how like apartheid in South Africa, part of it ending was the outside world actually putting a stop to this, saying this is enough, and I think it's the same principle applies, that it can't just be women who view women, with value. Men, we have to do the same, right? It's everyone collectively coming together, and I think that could help this process of dating and women choosing well and women feeling that if this is not a good thing for me,
then I'm out.
Then I can walk away because I have value, not because I'm in a relationship, but because of who I am. So I think then maybe a question would be, how then can women begin a journey of internally changing their belief systems around who they are? Because I think oftentimes what is going on inside will always reflect on what happens on the outside, right? As you think, you are. So how then do women, because I think we've established that, in the dating world, the power's a bit skewed, and women can sometimes be taken advantage of. How do they begin to start changing those internal beliefs to reclaim their identity and value outside of relational status?
You know what I absolutely love? So currently I'm reading Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, and you said something about as you think, you are. And he speaks about that, and he writes about the philosopher who first came up with that idea. And then he says like decades later, another one came, and essentially how that phrase had been accepted is that you are what you think, right? And then when the new philosopher came, I don't remember their names, but he then realizes that no, if we say as you think, so you are, then there has to be a you that is thinking, right? Like that is observing the thinking. So then he says, then you are not the thought, you are the observer of the thought. So you don't have to identify with your thought. And this makes complete sense, right? Because your thoughts can go anywhere. Your thoughts can say whatever they say. But when you recognize that surely if you say, as you think, there's a you. So it's not the same thing. So the thing that matters is that you, the one that is thinking. So it's like, but if you don't know that there's a you that is observing, it's like dreaming. When you're dreaming, you know you're dreaming. You know that you're observing something happening, but you're in it, but you're also observing yourself. But if you don't know that you're dreaming, then you think that that's reality. So all that to say, observe the thoughts, right? Observe the thoughts about marriage. Observe the thoughts about yourself, but don't take them on as you. I love that idea, because then it means it gives you the power.
Yes, it does.
Because I can wake up and a thought based off of how I grew up, based off of society around me will say, Sbo, you're worthless because 1, 2, and 3. Right? But the moment I realize that I am not the thought, I am the being observing the thought, I can decide how I want to respond to that thought. I can decide whether I want to take it on, or whether I want to question it, or whether I want to discard it. If you think about it, when I was on holiday, I was speaking about intrusive thoughts, right? We understand this about intrusive thought, because an intrusive thought can say to me, I wonder what would happen if I threw this cup at Kuda. Like, intrusive thoughts are so weird. Like, you could be driving and you're like, I wonder what would happen if I crashed into this car. But we don't take them seriously. But for whatever reason, all the other thoughts that come, we take them. I think that if it's not of you, and if it doesn't align with who you believe yourself to be, it's an intrusive thought. It's intruding in your being. It's intruding in who you are meant to be. It's an intruding in who you are as a person. So then you get to decide what you do with that thought. We discard intrusive thoughts. You're like, that's so crazy. Then you keep driving and you don't crash into the person. So that's part one, right? So what does it mean then? So if you're not your thoughts, then who are you? Right? Because we do have a responsibility to unlearn and undo so much of what society has said about what it means to be woman, or about what it means to be man. For example, like, one of the heavy stereotypes around men is like this provision thing, that like, you are and that's it's killing men, because it's killing them even in the instance of a lot of the men that aren't showing up as fathers, that aren't being present as fathers. It's because they can't provide, and they think that fatherhood means putting bread on the table. And so they forego having a relationship with their children because they can't show up in this one aspect. So a number's been done on all of us, and we all have a responsibility to do that work of really probing deeper into our thoughts about ourselves, and wondering and questioning, where does this come from? And what is my worth? Like, what has God created me? Yes. And I loved, like, something, I was having a conversation with another friend of mine, and Donnie, and they were essentially talking about, like, I just feel like I need to provide, and and he said to him, you need to let that pressure go, because provision belongs to God.
Sorry, I just have to, I have to come in here, because I was literally watching a video just yesterday of a pastor who was talking. He's like a marriage coach, marriage expert, and he was saying, like, how dare we take what God says he is. He says, you can't take that from him. He's promised to be your provider. So how dare you say that?
Now you put this weight on your shoulders.
That doesn't belong to you.
That doesn't belong to you. We say, if he can provide for the sparrows and he watches, you know what I mean? Right. Like, but then as a man, you go and you're like, this is, instead of looking at, okay, the main provider and resting in that, and then using the skills that he has provided you with to do your part, and for him to do it through you know.
Right.
So that's the one aspect. And I think for women as well, it's, what are those stereotypes, what are those things that have been pushed around, like you're worth being a wife, you're worth being childbearing. There are people who can't have children, you know, and not everyone has a miracle where they pray for years and eventually it comes. So what does your worth look like outside of that? Just like, and so I think it's figuring that out and creating a whole picture of yourself, because we are really co-creating ourselves with God, right? And looking to that to say, what does that look like? And then feeling whole in that, understanding that that is the full story.
This. So for me, right, when it came to how I see myself and my worth and my value, I grew up in high school kind of being quite insecure about who I was, and that kind of played into university. And so when I gave my life to Christ and I started this journey with him, it was one of the first things that I felt he strongly addressed, and he addressed it through his love. He I got to a point where I was like, if God loves me so much, why shouldn't I love myself? Like, if he loves me this much, why don't I love myself? It's almost pride to not love myself. It's actually almost pride, because who knows better? Who sees better? Right?
So good.
And so I then began to realize that my value comes from what he says and who he sees me as. And the beautiful thing about that it's unchanging. It's constant. So you remember when we're in the same youth group, right? I always used to make this example where in high school there was this thing about yellow bones, okay? And yellow bone guys were the thing at the time, right? This was a couple of years ago. And then years later it turned into tall, dark, handsome. Okay. And so, but funny enough, I kept thinking to myself, like, wow, isn't that funny how things change with trends?
You can't place your worth on it.
I can't place my worth on what people say or how people, you're going to change their minds, And so from that standpoint, I just want to encourage women in particular to, if you're a believer in God, if that's your belief system, really go and fight for who he calls you to be.
Sure.
And what he says about you. And why I say fight is because you will fight those thoughts. You're going to have to fight those beliefs. You're going to have to fight those narratives that have been said about you. But you need to settle it in your heart that this is who I am. And I promise that is going to show up in such a positive way in how you show up to the world.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
One of the things we were talking about just before we jumped on the podcast is like, you asked me this question around shame, and sometimes does the church, do they cause shame without realizing it around being single? And I was telling Spo how, like, initially when she asked me that question, I was like, yeah, I think definitely at times, the church would unintentionally, I think, and not all churches, but some unintentionally will push this narrative about needing to be married, or, if your singleness is this thing that you need to fix, right? And I was kind of agreeing, or not agreeing, but I was saying, yes, I think it does. They do cause that. And then I was telling Spo that I thought about it a bit more, and I said, doesn't shame have to do more with what's going on the inside? What I believe is true about myself, and I was making the example, right, that Spo's headstrong, okay? She's headstrong, right? But in such a good way. And so I was making the example that if Spo was single and she was in a church and there was another person next to her and people were pushing this narrative about her singleness being an issue, would that really have brought shame upon you? No. Why? Because there's something that you believed about yourself that is outside of your relational status. Your value and your identity doesn't come from whether you're married or whether you're single, right? And I think because of that, it actually then helps you to have a better relationship and marriage along the line or along the way. So one thing that we have spoken about a lot is doing the work.
Yeah.
You know, you're somebody that likes to do the work. You like the process of working on yourself, working with God, kind of co-laboring with God. Because I think oftentimes we want God just to do everything for us, and there's no responsibility. Change me, and there's no responsibility on our side. But I see that you are somebody that you take responsibility over your life, over your thoughts, over your belief system. So what does that look like practically for people?
Yeah.
What does doing the work actually look like?
Yeah. I mean, we're running out of time, or we have run out of time. But
we have? Okay.
I think for me, it's going the freedom. You know, Eckhart says, what a freedom, and how freeing it is to finally realize that you're not your thoughts, right? And what that means, though, doing the work is being conscious. So doing the work is not something in the future. It's how you show up in your present, right? But I think how you show up in your present also filters into your past. So part of it is unpacking that, saying like, if I do aspire for marriage, what has shaped that for me, right? And it will be shaped by how you grew up, by the marriage that you saw your parents have, And is that true for me? I think the difference in doing the work and not doing the work is whether you are aware or not aware, is whether you're conscious or not conscious. A lot of the people are just living. I don't even know if I want to call it living, but just almost like robotically, you take as whatever comes, without consciously looking at, hey, well, why did I, do that? Why did I, So a lot of the times, for example, we'll speak about having very negative dating experiences over and over and over again without asking, what in me is allowing me to put myself in experience like this, especially continuously.
Wow, so
and
not
that's
just
the
being a victim about it.
Not just being a victim about it, but taking the accountability to say, yes, this terrible person exists, but I agreed to it. And so if I agreed to it, it's possible that there is a part of me that believes I am deserving of this, or that believes I am not deserving of something better than this. What is that? Why? So I think a lot of it is have curiosity about yourself and about life. So instead of boxing something as good or bad, be curious. Say, that's interesting. Why? And the more curious you are, the more you can start to learn. And the more you can start to learn, the more you can start actively deciding now what your life looks like, as opposed to accepting it as it is. Because if you're like, oh, okay, I have a propensity to people please. Okay. Why? How does it show up? Okay. What is unhealthy about it? What is good about it? What would I like to discard? What would I like to keep? Now you're crafting, right? Now you're crafting. You're not just saying, there's nothing I hate more than people who say, this is just who I am. Ugh. So boring.
You've chosen to be.
Yeah, no, but also you have
allowed yourself. Well,
you'd be so shocked at how who we are is based on what people affirmed about us. So if people said, oh, she's such a quiet little one, so cute, then you go with that because you want acceptance. A lot of the times we are a product of the environment, and so you don't even have a choice. It's like the provision thing. If you say, if that's how you see yourself, you didn't decide that, society decided for you. So now what does it look like for you to actively work out, okay, who is this person, but not to accept everything that you receive, right? That you hear, to say, I don't like this, so this looks like we have to cut it off. Like if you're a person with a short temper, That's not set in stone. You can do something about that.
Right.
You know, if you're somebody that struggles with anxiety, it's not set in stone. You can do something.
It doesn't have to be part of your identity.
It doesn't have to be part of your identity. So I think a lot of the times we just are like, this is who I am. But it's work. You can put work is saying, okay, what part of it comes from society? What part of it comes from my parents? What part of it comes from school? What part of it comes from the people that I've dated? That now I kind of go in that thing where I think, I don't deserve better. I don't, you know. And what does it mean for me to actively open this package of me and cast out what is not serving me and cast out and bring in new traits? Like maybe you saw something in school, you're like, I like that. What does it look like for me to model? Then you are this canvas and this picture that's got all kinds of colors, but it's going in this direction, you know, in a direction that you are happy with, in a direction that makes sense and aligns with who you want to be. And anytime an intrusive thought comes, you deal with it right there and there in the present moment. Because in the moment you realize, when intrusive thoughts, you realize that the other thoughts that we don't see to be intrusive, sometimes we're not even aware we're thinking them. They're just a part of our lives. They're part of who we are. Sometimes we'll even say to people, oh no, this is, you know, because it's been reinforced so many times. And thoughts are egoic, right? In the sense that that's how they stay alive, by constantly repeating themselves. But the moment you create awareness is how you kill them. The moment you create awareness is you go, okay, but that's not me. So it's an ongoing process, but it starts with being present and listening. You know, like I think being conscious is almost like, if you're a believer, it's like having the Holy Spirit in you, who really will show you and remind you who you are. Like Jesus says, like he will remind you. And that, but also he will remind you, right? Like he will remind you, but remind you as well. So, but that can only happen if you're being conscious. That can only happen if you're aware of what needs to be reminded in you. And then every day you go in that. Once you've decided, you stick to that. You remain true to that, to say, we're not doing that anymore.
Absolutely.
That's not reflective of who we are.
Absolutely.
So that's, I think that's in a nutshell what it's about.
And I think, God even encourages us taking captive your thoughts. This is what you're kind of talking about reminds me of a conversation I had just last week, where I was talking to a friend about a particular issue or challenge I was having. And he was saying that the biggest blocker for you getting on the other side is you. It's because you're not taking your thoughts captive. You're just accepting everything you think as though it's you. Not realizing that there are so many factors that influence what's going on in your mind. And I think when you begin to understand what is actually taking place and you decide to choose what to believe, those beliefs become like an anchor. We were talking about it, how like I feel God's truth for me is like an anchor, because if I just go with everything that's going in my mind, I'm tossed and turned by everything, right? Different directions. This person says this. One moment people are saying, oh, wow, you're so great. The other moment people say, dude, you're actually this, you're this. So society or your experiences, your negative ones. And every time you're just all over the show, right? So yeah, but I think that you can see me and Spo like to go very deep.
And this is such as because it will never. We probably just need to do a part 2.
I think so.
We probably just need to do a part 2.
I really think so.
Because there was so much to unpack.
Honestly, I felt like there was so many more questions and things that we could have explored. But I think this was great. And I think there's a golden thread. I really believe there's a golden thread through all of what we're speaking about, whether it's singleness, marriage, or value. But I think it has a lot to do with what's going on the inside, and beliefs. That's the golden thread I took from today. So thank you. Thank you for having me, Spo.
This was so great. You're definitely coming back.
Thank you.
So we can, what we should probably do is, you know, in you listening to this conversation, maybe in the comment section, just like put some questions that are that came up, or some thoughts that came up that maybe you would like, you know, us to then unpack in part 2. Because it does feel like there's still so much more. But we will let you guys drive the second part of this conversation and let us know, like, what are some of the things that you believe around singleness that have shaped how you're showing up in your single life, and what changes would you like to see, and what responsibility do we have? What responsibility does society have in creating healthier versions of single life, so that because marriage is so important. Marriage is so important for society. It's important for community. It's important to create healthy community.
Absolutely.
But healthy people need to be the ones going into them. So we have a responsibility to shape that as we're being single and as we enter into marriage. So thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. Kuda, thank you so much. There's been so many hurdles. It almost didn't happen, but it was worth it, and I'm so glad that it happened, and I can't wait for the next one. Looking forward to hear what you guys thought of the conversation. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye.